How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Maya?
I'm good. All right. So we're just trying to get a bit of a sense of what Boxford was like in the past. So you mentioned that you grew up in Boxford.
I did, yes.
So kind of what was that like? Maybe we can start with how close you were with your neighbors in the town.
The neighbors were close, but there were large lots because you had to have septic systems.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I could see neighbors, but they're not right next to you.
Yeah. Were there any major events that happened either annually or periodically in the town that you can remember?
No, I mean, it was a pretty rural town back then. When I was growing up, I think the whole town was probably 1,000 people. And you had two parishes, the East and the West Parish. We lived in the West Parish. Um, the East Parish was probably twice the size of West. The West Parish had a lot of what I'll call small family farms. So we saw that in terms of businesses, other than the two stores, um, there was a business zone on the east end that is now a mall, a strip mall. On the west end, there was a garage repair shop and the village store, and that was kind of it for business zones. There were churches in both ends, first and second congregational. There was meeting halls, if you want to call that, where the Legion met, or where for a time the Board of Selectmen met at the East End. So, I mean, the town was pretty rural, pretty laid back. I think there were 13 kids in my grammar school class. So quite a bit different than today.
Yeah.
I, I was in the second graduating class for Masconomic Regional High School.
Oh,
So it
wow.
wasn't even built when I started high school. At the time, they would send the West End kids to North Andover High School for 2 years, and they sent the East End kids to Topsfield High School.
Interesting. Are there any games you remember playing with other kids when you were maybe a little bit younger?
Well, you always play, sandlot baseball or football or whatever. In terms of grammar school, you had to play every sport because there's only 13 kids. So, so you get to play basketball and baseball and football.
Oh, yeah. Do you have any notable friends from your childhood, maybe that you've kept in touch with still?
Yes, a couple have stayed in touch with. We had a strange situation in that 13 kids, four of us had the same birthday.
Oh, wow. It's kind of fun. So what was school like? How did you get to school?
I walked to school. The Aaron Wood School was the elementary school for the West End, and it was probably half a mile from my house. So you walked to school for I think that was grades 1 through 4, and then took a bus to grades 5 through 8 down to the Harry Lee, the school next to the Harry Lee Cole School. And then the Harry Lee Cole School was the rest of the elementary before going to high school.
Cool. What were the classes and teachers like?
What were the classes? Did
Yeah.
you? I mean, the classes back then were pretty basic. You know, you're basically arithmetic and reading and history and English and, pretty basic courses.
What were the teachers like?
They were really nice. You know, could know them for a real long time because they're small class and you have the same teacher year after year. So
Yeah.
we got to know them obviously very well.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. What kind of extracurriculars did you have? Did you have anything besides the sports?
In a small town like that, you had fishing and biking and maybe some hunting, but there weren't a lot of other opportunities for extracurricular beyond that.
What kind of school events did you have when you were younger?
Primarily just classes and sports events.
Hmm.
I
Do
mean,
you
they had some plays that we put on at that time, but pretty low key by today's standards.
did you have any memorable school events, like things that you look back on specifically?
No, not particularly. I mean, in high school, you had different clubs and so forth. I was in the German club and the chess club in addition to playing sports and that kind of thing. But in terms of a big time memorable event, no.
Do you have any other specific stories kind of about high school, maybe like anecdotes from your time there?
Nothing that really stands out. I mean, it was a pretty normal occurrence going to high school. I mean, you're dating and you're going to dances and that kind of things. But no, nothing that just said, wow, I never forgot that.
Did you know that what you do now is what you wanted to do when you were younger?
Pretty much. I mean, I always thought I wanted to be an engineer. And so I took all the math and science courses I could in high school and did go to Northeastern University and graduated in chemical engineering.
Were there any pieces of notable pop culture from when you were younger?
No, I mean, it was time for rock and roll. And, the Beatles were a big deal back then. All the different rock and roll stars, Elvis and all the stars at that time.
Yeah. Did you have any summer jobs when you were younger?
Oh, yeah. I started working on the farms when I was probably 10 years old, picking berries and weeding and all that kind of thing. And actually, as in elementary school later on, I actually worked in the village store stocking shelves for the owner at the time. And then later on, I really hit the jackpot because I got a job at Benson's ice cream stand, and I worked there for all through the rest of high school and actually a few years of college.
Is there anything you remember specifically about working at Benson's, maybe what your favorite part of it was?
I was the only boy, all the rest were girls, and had and I knew everybody because you're a small town, you know everybody. And over time, John Benson was alive and the owner at the time. And when he would take vacations, I would run the stand. I'd go make the ice cream. He had another store down in, I forgot the name of the town, but a few towns over, he had another store, and that's where the ice cream was made. And then when he closed that, we made the ice cream right there at the stand in West Boxford.
Do you remember what your favorite flavor to make was?
Not really, probably chocolate fudge walnut. I think I like them all.
I don't blame you. What kind of technology did you use growing up?
Telephone, yeah, telephone and slide rule, and eventually a handheld calculator.
Were you a fan of the radio or anything, listening to music?
There was radio and there was television. We had television, but back then you had probably 3 or 4 stations to pick from, and there was antenna. You had an antenna on the roof to get the signals, but that's how it was back then.
Yeah. What kind of things did you do for fun when you were in high school? Like, did you go to the movies or anything?
Yeah, we went to movies, usually over to Lawrence or Haverhill. Those were the big towns nearby. Go to the movies maybe a couple times a month. And a lot of the dating, if you at the dating time, you would go to the movies or that kind of thing, or go bowling, or that was pretty much it, I think.
Were there any like restaurants nearby you would hang out at or anything?
There were no restaurants in Boxford, so after you got a driver's license, you could go to. I think one of the first McDonald's opened in Andover. Kind of remember that. And there were a few casual restaurants around, but nothing very fancy.
Right. So, kind of moving into your experience with the village store, you said that you had left the town and then came back to own it. What kind of
Yes.
influenced you to do that?
Well, after college, I was called up into the Army. I was ROTC. So I was called up almost immediately into the Army. So I was 4 years in the Army, including a year in Vietnam. And then from there, I went to work at Campbell Soup Company in Camden, New Jersey, which was close by to Fort Dix, which was my last duty assignment. And basically worked with them for 5 years. But I knew Earl Blake, the owner of the store, and I had said to him a long time ago, if you ever sell the store, give me a call and we can talk about it. And he called and he said, I'm going to retire and just wanted to let you know, are you interested in buying the store? And I loved the job with Campbell's, but I did want to get back to my roots, and my parents were getting older,
Yeah.
and all of our family was in Boxford or right around the area. So we talked about it, and we reached an agreement to buy the store.
Excellent. Do you think that growing up here definitely influenced your decision to buy it?
Oh, I think absolutely, because I wouldn't have even known about it if I hadn't grown up here,
Yeah.
small town. And so Earl and I reached an agreement that I would buy the business, the store, the village store, and all of the inventory. And I had an option to buy the building, but I chose not to do that at that time. Later on, the whole sequence evolves from there. So basically, we bought the business and bought the inventory, and we moved back from New Jersey in a big U-Haul truck with all of our belongings. And there were two apartments above the store, and I said to Earl, we need to make it one big apartment because I got two kids. And so my son at the time was probably 8 years old, and my daughter was a year old. And so we converted the two apartments into one, and that's where we lived above the store.
Very nice. Um, what was your favorite thing about the West Village store?
Favorite thing was the people, the customers, because having grown up in town, I knew about everybody from the old timers anyway. The new timers we got to know, and the store was unique in a regard that, in terms of the receipts coming in from the store, you had one third cash, one third credit cards, which was pretty much for gas purchases, and one third a store charge. So you actually ran your own tab for people.
Hmm.
So people, kids, so the people would rush in, they grab a jug of milk, and they'd head out the door and say, put it on my charge. So you had to know the names of 150 people pretty quickly in order to know who to charge the purchase to. So that really accelerated the need to get to know people and get to understand them. So, but that's what made the whole thing fun, was the people.
Yeah. And so at the time, it wasn't like also a cafe.
We had a snack bar in the back. So at that time, the store building had the post office in it. It had the main store itself, which had refrigerated, frozen, and dry goods aisles. It had gas pumps out front, and it had a snack bar in the back. And my wife, Claudia, ran the snack bar, and I ran the front when we came back. And she did some baking of some homemade desserts, and we would serve lunch at the snack bar. No dinner and no breakfast.
Kind of cool that you got to work there together.
Yeah, we did. It was fun.
Yeah. Um, did you get like a lot of people that came there every day or like hung out there at all?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the regulars would come in pretty much every day, and a lot of the regulars for the snack bar would be there for lunch, maybe 3 or 4 days out of the week. Certainly you had the chief of police came in there a whole bunch to have lunch, and because it's a volunteer fire department, but some of the firemen and the highway department, they would come in also, along with contractors and just other regulars.
Yeah. What were your responsibilities as the owner?
Responsibilities, why?
As the owner.
Well, everything. I mean, everything from cleaning the toilets to keeping the books and do the banking and picking up deliveries and supplies. And because the village store is a pretty small deal for most people, we had to go and get the supplies from a wholesaler. So we had to get a pickup truck and go pick up all the stuff and bring it back to the store and mark it, put it on the shelves. We did have deliveries of milk. The dairy people delivered, and then other people would do different types of deliveries. But I mean, when you're the owner of the store, you're it. If there's anything that needs to be done, you need to get it done. After a while, my nephew, who had graduated from high school, joined us and worked in the store. And he worked for a couple of years with us, and then he went in the military, and his name was Jeff Stromberg. He still lives in the Boxford area. And then we hired Jay Harris, who lived right down the street from the store, and he worked with us until we still sold the store.
So were you pretty close with like the employees that work there?
Oh, very much. Of course, my nephew, we knew very well, but we got to know Jay very well, knew his family. So, I mean, a small town.
Yeah. Do you have any specific favorite memories from owning it?
A couple of the blizzards that we had, I think the big one was blizzard of 78. Because there's only two sets of gas pumps in town, one in each store on each end. The highway trucks, police, fire department had to come and gas up at your store, and we had a deal set up where on the outside there was an electrical disconnect box that would shut off the pumps, and there was a padlock on them, and then all those guys had keys to the padlock, and they could get it. So when the blizzard came, we pumped over 1,000 gallons of gas in the middle of the night, because they were plowing snow, and they needed the gas at that time. So nice to sell $1,000 for 1,000 gallons of gas.
Yeah.
With being open.
Yeah, but kind of like, I mean, since I've been here, obviously there's not a gas station anymore. I was just curious kind of what it was like having the gas station there.
Well, I mean, the gas station had been there forever. I think the previous owners, if I remember when I was growing up, there was a Mr. Hook that owned the store, and then I think there was a Byron, forgot his last name, who owned it before Earl Blake owned it. So I can't remember a time that the gas pumps weren't there.
Yeah. What were some of the changes that the store went through from when you were a kid to when you owned it?
I think it remained very much the same. When we took it over, we changed a lot of the things that we carried. You had a more upscale clientele at that time, so we changed out, put in a number of varieties of cheeses and things like that people wanted. Put in an expanded array of greeting cards. People at that time, would want a whole bunch of different type of greeting cards. So we changed the mix of things as we went through, but we didn't change the store physically. We didn't move walls or things of that nature, which happened after we left.
What was changed after? Do you know what any of the changes were after you left?
No, we went back and visited the store a couple of times when we were back in the area. And I think, we sold the store to, excuse me, we have a train going over in the distance. we sold the store to Robin and Jean Neal, who at the time lived across the street from Benson's Ice Cream. And so we didn't see much of them because we were gone. We were off to the corporate world after that. After we sold the store, I was working with the Foxborough Company, and then got recruited to Nabisco in New Jersey. So we were gone. We're not in the area for let's see, probably quite a while, just to come back and visit. And so we visited once, and there was more of what I call a coffee house type format there. That's the one. We did meet that owner at the time and chatted with him a bunch, but we didn't have a lot of time to come back in and see the changes because we were not in the state.
Yeah. What made you end up selling it?
I think I just got a little tired of the long hours, and basically after the first year or so, we'd made the changes that we wanted. So I got into politics, and I ran for planning board. Was elected twice for planning board, and then the board of selectmen. I was elected to that. And so when these opportunities came up in the corporate world again, we decided that you got to do one, you got to do the other. So that's when we sold the store.
What was your experience like with some of the town politics?
I mean, it's small town politics, absolutely. The big issues are which roads you're going to get paved, and you're going to build a new fire station, and where's it going to go? And so I always found it to be interesting because there were always financial decisions to be made. But the town was growing, but at the same time, it wasn't spending huge dollars on things. The biggest expenditures we had was the refurbishing the libraries, and the library that you're probably in now wasn't even built. There was two libraries on one in each end of the town. One of them in the old Gardner Moss School, which was the elementary school that I went to, was a library for the time being. So those kind of decisions are classic small town decisions, and I enjoyed that because with every one of those, you had to go listen to what people wanted to do, what they had to say, and you knew a lot of the people, so it made it fun.
Do you ever miss owning the village store, being here?
I mean, there's a nostalgia about it, but no, I don't regret selling it. We had a really interesting career after that, and that worked out just great.
Yeah. What did you end up going into afterwards?
I ran engineering for major corporations, three different ones. Retired from General Mills here in Minneapolis.
It's pretty interesting. Do you have any other just stories from being in Boxford that you think are interesting?
Well, one that came to mind was because you knew a lot of the folks that had been around for a long time. In the summertime, we would sell some fresh produce from the local farms, either tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, that kind of thing. And Barbara Chadwick, we'd always buy tomatoes and stuff for her. She'd come into the store, and there'd be a big bowl of tomatoes right up front for people to see. And she'd go right over the bowl and start squeezing the tomatoes and said, "This one's getting too ripe, this one's getting too ripe." She'd take them out and put all new fresh ones in for no charge.
Oh, that's kind of nice having those small town connections.
Yes, it is. It is. We still go back every year to Boxford.
Oh, you do?
My wife has three sisters that live in 4 Mile Village.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So we come back every year. We're actually coming back in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's exciting.
So we always visit them and get her a fill of fried clams and lobster.
It's one of the best parts about Massachusetts.